Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 237 today of Level Up. 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A where your questions really do drive the show. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, then, of course, you can find out so much more about what we do in the APMG International channel. So give this video a like and, of course, to subscribe so that you can find out everything that is happening. Ella today is over in the social chat. She's just introducing herself. So please do the same thing. Let her know your name and the city from where you're joining. She's going to post some links in so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered. And, of course, for you to be able to add your own as well. And if your question's selected, then your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show, and quite right too. So do get those questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Project outcomes impact a wide range of different communities, from those who are intimately involved, close to the center of the project, through to those who are several orders of magnitude away. Engaging with stakeholders to listen, consider, and of course explain is a key skill, and one that is often, I would say, under-invested in throughout the project lifecycle. So how should we be engaging with stakeholders in 2024? And do we need to update some of our previous thinking? To help us out is our expert panel. So let's jump in and meet them all. Farah HEBA rejoins. She is, of course, a product owner and a trainer over at Aedger, where her client base extends from the public to the private sector and across many fast-paced and culturally diverse environments. With a keen attention to detail, Farah focuses on bringing the very best out of her clients and their team. Welcome back to Level Up, Farah.
Hi, Nick. Hi, everybody. Well, we're having a great panel and a great topic today, so I'm really looking forward to answering the questions.
Absolutely, and sharing your experiences as well. And thank you so much, Farah, for rejoining. Sean Newton also rejoins today. She is, of course, a project and relationship manager here at APMG. With a background in customer services, I think it's fair to say that she developed her passion for problem solving and applied this to the world of project management. Welcome back to Level Up, Sean. Great to see you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to learn a bit more from everyone in the panel today.
Thank you so much. Rafał Czarny joins. He is Director of Innovation and Development at Inprogress Design Lab and the lead author on the DT method, which helps you apply design thinking in your organization. An accomplished facilitator, coach and trainer, Rafał is passionate about helping people think through how design creates better outcomes and better impacts for projects. Welcome back to Level Up, Rafał.
Thank you very much, Nick. Hi, everyone. It will be a pleasure talking about understanding stakeholders.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much as well. Actually, this is quite an illustrious panel, isn't it? I'm starting to feel a little outclassed. But there we go. It's a learning opportunity for me and for everybody, of course, at Level Up. Luca Ingianni rejoins. He's the co-founder of Vempio, who specialize in helping their clients focus on customer value, people, and culture. An agile coach and a DevOps spearhead, Luca has helped countless individuals and teams to raise their careers. Welcome back to Level Up, Luca.
Thanks for having me again. I'm looking forward to this discussion today.
Thank you very much indeed. Darrel Popowich, he rejoins. He's an expert, of course, in building and managing business relationships and an executive coach, very accomplished executive coach and a personal mentor and an inspiration for me. He's a regular contributor here on Level Up, and he works tirelessly to support communities around the world and brings his thought leadership and experience back to our panel again today. Darrel, I know it's probably in the middle of the night for you right now, but we're so delighted to welcome you back to Level Up. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much. Looking forward to the conversation today. And yes, it is right in the middle of the night here. It's dark, but we'll have some fun.
All right. Okay. So we're connecting British Columbia all of the way across the world to the UK and all of the way across to India and beyond into Australia and so on. So truly a global experience. New to the panel today is Mridul Tandon. He's a trainer and consultant with Khanna Associates. He's based over in India, where he promotes leading practice in project and program management with a background in marketing. Mridul is always looking to the future, helping his clients figure out what they need to do to improve project outcomes and deliver greater value. Welcome to Level Up, Mridul. It's great to see you.
Thank you. And I look forward to this opportunity of a shared learning about stakeholders, because most often we ourselves are stakeholders in many things. So let us look from the perspective of the people who are on the other side of the table and increase my own understanding about it. So thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. And as you rightly said, that I enjoyed sharing knowledge with people, and the passion goes on.
Excellent. Thank you so much indeed, Mridul. We're super excited to have you on the panel today. Now, Level Up doesn't work without your questions because, of course, your questions actually drive the show. So helping us out here is our question master for today, who is Suchitra Jacob. I'm delighted to welcome back, who joins us from Bangalore in India. Hi, Suchitra. How are you?
Hello, Nick, and hello to the panelists and, of course, our viewers. I'm doing well, thank you. And I can see we have a lot of questions, so I can't wait to start asking them.
All right, excellent. Okay, well, I think we should do that then without any further delay. So, Suchitra, if we can, let's have our first question to the panel.
Sure. So our first question is from Aedger, who asks, how can we foster collaboration and mutual understanding among diverse stakeholders?
Okay, very good. All right, so it's all about fostering collaboration and mutual understanding. Mridul, why don't you start us off?
Okay, wonderful. Stakeholders having diverse interests will always be applicable, because no two human beings are alike. What we need to understand is that what is the area of agreement among those stakeholders. So we can try to understand that what are their concerns, which would be common, but there would be many which may not be matching with each other. So in that situation, what we need to do is that at least the area of agreement is enhanced, is increased among the stakeholders. And we also have to be careful that the area of disagreement, supposedly if they have certain concerns and they may have certain aversions or certain, reservations, at least that should not influence the other stakeholders. So we have to encourage the positive interaction in the area of agreement, and that we need to think.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. It's such an important skill, isn't it, to know when to listen and to help draw out so that people can be heard. But I agree with you. At the same time, you need to manage the impact of some concerns upon others and act accordingly. Farah, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Rafał.
Thank you, Nick. Well, I would say that from experience, I've been managing a lot of teams, a lot of stakeholders that have diverse background. And let's say the one takeaway that I would share with the viewers and the panelists is embrace diversity. You might have stakeholders that are from different backgrounds, that have different ideas, whatever you want, but the potential for innovation and creative problem solving increases exponentially when you have diverse people. Well, of course, you will try to create a community, you will try to set some ground rules, but just make sure that you're not trying to make everybody fit into one square.
It's so important, isn't it, to recognize that diversity in the first place, I think, and not to be so polarized in our thinking, or indeed, a little bit kind of too focused, if you like, and so that we're not actually stepping back a little bit and just reflecting and thinking, yeah, actually, I can understand why somebody might be saying this or, saying that and so on. So thank you very much indeed. Rafał, your thoughts, please, then we'll go to Luca.
Yes, already Farah said a lot of things which I wanted to say. So thank you, Farah. I would add only maybe a tool or approach which we could use during the creating mutual understanding among the stakeholders. Facilitation workshops. We should invite the stakeholders and work with them, ask them for their opinions, ask them for their needs. Because without that, we cannot understand them and they cannot understand each other. We can do focus interviews. We can conduct facilitated workshops inside the organization. It depends what kind of initiative are we carrying on, and yeah, let's talk with them.
I think that's such a really good idea, Rafał. Thank you, because I think we need practical techniques, and facilitation is one of those things. Again, why do we all imagine that we can be great facilitators? You know, it actually takes a lot of practice and witnessing other people and being inspired by how they do things, and then having a go ourselves. So, really great advice. Thank you so much indeed. And Luca, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I really latched onto this question of how can you foster collaboration? And I think the most crucial aspect to that is to create a sense of, a common goal instead of creating, turf wars, contradictions, that sort of thing. And once you have this shared goal, then you can create transparency and say, well, this is the situation and this is what the project as a whole will get out of this. And everybody will have an opportunity to chip in or make compromises or whatever. But I think it's so crucial to have everybody find a way to have this shared understanding, this shared goal. I think this is the most crucial part.
It's certainly the desired outcome, isn't it? Do you feel, Luca, that sometimes personality plays a part, that when you're engaging with stakeholders, you have to inspire, you have to have that, be the patient person, be the energy, if you like, that says we can do this together?
Yes, of course. And partly it's also even essentially shaping the narrative and saying, well, this is how you can contribute, or can't you see that this is how this other person is contributing to your goals? So in many cases, it's really opening the eyes of the stakeholders for the different plights or for the different situations. And then you can foster this shared goal, which I suppose they have because they're working on the same project, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely are. Thank you so much indeed. Very good. Well, what a great start to the show. And I can see lots and lots of folks joining online today as well, which is really brilliant. So let's do a few shout outs to our producers. You are the producers of the show. Orla is one of them today, joining from Reading here in the Thames Valley in the UK. Welcome, Orla. Great to have you on the team. And Mark is joining from the Rotterdam area. So anyway, I know roughly where Rotterdam is, so thank you very much. In the Netherlands tradition, all the money is earned in Rotterdam, I think, and then the saying goes that it's spent in Amsterdam. So if you think about your country and you think about cities, there may be a commercial city where the money is generated and another one where the money is spent. So thank you very much for joining. Idara rejoins as well from Abuja in Nigeria. Thank you so much indeed, Idara. Idara is, of course, a regular contributor to Level Up. So we're really pleased to have you as part of the team again today, Darrel. So thanks very much. Look forward to hearing your questions coming up. And now, on that note, Suchitra, I think we should move on. Let's take our next question to the panel, please.
The next question is from Lisa in the UK. What is a stakeholder, and are they just found in the professional environment?
It's a really well-phrased question, this, isn't it? Kind of cut straight to the point. So it's even quite, well-phrased in the attack at the beginning, kind of what is a stakeholder, rather than perhaps we might be thinking, who is a stakeholder? So Mridul, help me out. Give me a classical, explanation of stakeholders, please.
Stakeholder, I'm doing this program and trainings of APMG. My wife is a very valid stakeholder in the whole activity.
Okay.
So
I get that.
So I think whether it is professional or personal, the stakeholders are always existing. And we need to understand that what kind of interest or influence they may have on us and on the change initiative. So anyone, I would say positive way or negative way, adversely or favorably, even if somebody is interested in this benefit, he's a stakeholder. So let us not ignore him.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Appreciate that. Darrel, your thoughts, please, and then Sian.
Yeah, you bet. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about anyone who can benefit from the outcome of the engagement or the program or the department of what's going on is a stakeholder. But probably more importantly for project managers or sponsors, anyone who can have a negative impact, can delay. And that includes partners and spouses and kids, because they can actually impact some key personnel. And so I'm just going to pile on with what Mridul brought on. Do not just view those executives. It can be anyone in the organization that can prevent your engagement initiative project from moving forward.
Absolutely right. And it's so important to look beyond the formal power structure, as Darrel is saying here, to the informal influencer power structure, because, you know, they can have a massive impact, these folks, you know, on how your project is perceived, how it's actually, you know, embraced, if you like, by different communities. So do think about that influencer community. Thank you, Darrel. Really good point. Very well made. Sian, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Rafał.
So I think, to me, a stakeholder is anyone with a sort of vested interest in a piece of work or a change or a project that might be going on. And I think that can be to any level. It can be as minute as just, you know, being consulted for some feedback, a consultative stage early on, or it could be that they're a direct recipient of the outcome. And I do agree that maybe you wouldn't necessarily refer to someone as a stakeholder in your personal life. They might like that, they might not. But I think the same premise can be applied to sort of outside the professional realm, which is that you just communicate with people. You have open communication lines, and you get feedback, and you check in. And I think that can be applied to stakeholders and to personal stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is a term that we tend to use in the project and program kind of world, but I agree with you, and also Mridul, in that actually, when you think about it, there's applications for this across all of our lives, both professional and private, if you like. Rafał, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Farah.
Yes, for me, stakeholder, especially at the beginning of any initiative, if it is a change initiative, project, program, whatever, at the beginning, for me, it's always a person or a group of people who have or might have any interest in the product of change, program, or project. Because at the beginning, we don't really know who the stakeholder is. We will get known with them in the way through the life cycle of the change or project. But at the beginning, thinking about them in case of interest, if they have or might have, is important to me personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think stakeholder communities tend to be revealed throughout project life cycles. You don't always know at the beginning who the stakeholders are, and indeed, you know, how best to be able to engage with them and how best to be able to reach them. So I love that little nuance there. You know, it's the folks who might be, you know, so think about that a little bit and cast your net a wee bit wider and keep looking would be the outcome of that kind of activity. So thank you so much indeed. Farah, your thoughts, then we'll go to Luca.
Well, I really like the question because, every time there is one of the binds that's sharing something, we're kind of having another layer speaking about the stakeholders. I would add up one more. When speaking about stakeholders, it's not, for me, it's not only people that have an interest or have an impact. It's also people that might share information, that might share knowledge that you do not have. If we take an example for a project manager, well, you might be an expert in your field, but that doesn't mean that you have all the answers. So basically, stakeholders might be people that can share with you insights, experiences that you haven't considered, that will help you into preparing better, into avoiding pitfalls. So let's say, add up layer who can share information that will be of interest about your topic, your change topic, your project, your program, whatever.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much, Farah. And Luca, final thoughts?
Yeah, I really like what Farah and Rafał said. And I would like to add one more dimension, which is that often you have stakeholders that are easily overlooked. Your support personnel, people who are users of your product who maybe depend on your product, but who are overlooked because they are not immediately obvious as stakeholders, as people who are supposedly important. And then the same way, by the way, even the project team themselves, whoever is building the product, they also can take the perspective of a stakeholder and say, well, we need something about the shape of this product so that we can work best, so that we can work effectively, so that we can, enjoy our work. So it's very simple for even a small project to gain a large number of stakeholders that are not evident, just like Rafał said, that will sort of make themselves known over time if you keep your eyes peeled.
Absolutely. Thank you so much indeed. Well, thank you, everybody. And what a fascinating question from Lisa to be able to get us kind of considering who those individuals might be, where they might be, and how indeed we might be able to engage with them on the project journey. So thank you very much indeed. Let's move on. Suchitra, I can see lots of questions coming in from our audience online.
So Mark has just submitted a question. I am a part of a small group of stakeholders that are deliberately not actively involved in a project ran by a local government. What can we do?
Ah, okay. So there's some feeling of being almost held at arm's length there. I don't want to use the word excluded entirely, Mark, but that's the sentiment, that is kind of coming through from you. Let's mix up the order a little bit. Sian, why don't you start us off, and then we're going to hear from Farah.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly like this question because actually it's realistic, right? Because we like to hope that every stakeholder is engaged, but occasionally that might not be the case. And actually, this is very much from the stakeholder's perspective of how do I get engaged then when I feel that I'm not. Which I think one of the best routes is basically to state your relevance in whatever the change or project or piece of work might be. So this is relevant to me because it directly impacts my day-to-day, or I could impact the outcome of it, the success of it, because I'm involved in whatever it might be impacting. And I think if you can state your importance as part of it, and this is why I am a stakeholder, then hopefully you would be received with a good reception.
All right, that's a really good approach. Thank you very much, Sian. Try and illustrate the value, if you like, of the contribution that you may be able to make and use that as a route to a closer level of engagement. Farah, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Mridul.
Thank you, Nick. Well, I would say that you might try two different things from my perspectives. First is try to figure out or to ask them, what would you do differently to make them maybe more comfortable with what you're dealing with, the project, the change, whatever. And second, try to use, let's say, basic stakeholder resistance topic or let's say techniques, like offering them choices so that they can put the ownership and control back into their hands.
That's a really good approach, actually, to kind of offer a selection, if you like. You'll see this sometimes on the television, don't you, where an interviewer is trying to narrow down a politician to answer a question. So instead of asking open questions, they start to ask, more questions which are perhaps a little bit more closed. And have a specific outcome in order to be able to elicit a clearer response, perhaps there. Mridul, your thoughts for Mark, who's trying to get involved but seems to be being held at arm's length a wee bit.
I think there are two parts to this. One is that what are the concerns that a deliberate role is not being given to a group of stakeholders? And that is for stakeholders to understand. And secondly, I would say that they need to present their case in an assertive manner, that in what way they can make a contribution to the success of the change and what role they can play. So I think if these two parts, one is from their own side and another would be from the organizer side, only then there can be a meaningful engagement.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think in so many areas of local politics, you have
Exactly.
Two sets of people. You have the folks who are elected, who are generally the amateurs, And then you have the folks who are the permanent officers of the local government who are employed full time, and they know the rules, and they possibly know the rules a little better than perhaps the elected officials might do, or it might do. So with that in mind, I would suggest to everybody who's in this situation, and Mark, is that it's a good thing to know the rules and to see if you can use the more permanent members of local government in order to be able to engage with you, because the rules will probably be that engagement ought to happen at certain points. And so do work on that basis and let us know, actually, how you get on with that, and no matter what your size is, remember that actually small groups can be mighty. Right? So you don't need to be large in volume to have a big impact on something. You could make all of the difference and improve the outcome for everybody. So don't give up on that. All right, very good. Thank you, Mark, for your question. Thank you, panel, for your thoughts on that. Let's move on to Suchitra if we can. We'll take our next question to the team.
The question from Jane in Manchester. What would you say was the top soft skill to master for engaging with stakeholders effectively?
All right, very good. The top soft skill, that's quite interesting, isn't it? So there's probably quite a few that the panel might have in mind. Darrel, why don't you start us off and then we'll hear from Luca?
I think the most important thing is to effectively do and engage in active listening. And so you ask the question, give me your feedback. And so often I've been advised, and I advise as well in return, when you ask that question, shut up and listen to the entire answer. Do not defend, do not explain, do not come over the top and did you not read the project document? Did you not read the meeting invite? No, listen to those stakeholders. They will feel more engaged when you get all the way through their feedback and their point of view.
It's such an important skill, isn't it, to hold that thought, because it's quite fascinating. As you're listening, we all have a terrible habit, don't we? Let's be honest with each other. We have a terrible habit of, as soon as the other person starts to speak, we're already constructing our response. We shouldn't do that. We should wait, as you say, Darrel. So thank you. That is an excellent one to kind of start us off. Really appreciate it. Luca, your top soft skill, please.
Yeah, actually, that was a great introduction from Darrel. And mine would essentially be on top of that, to have great empathy, to find ways to understand what this other person is actually trying to tell me after I've listened very carefully, and find ways to turn this into a cohesive desire for the entire group, the entirety of all of the stakeholders. I think this is very crucial, that you can build this rapport, this empathy, to create the shared understanding that you need.
Thank you very much indeed. Being empathetic and demonstrating that empathy, and particularly if you're working remotely from stakeholders, is very important. So learning the techniques of thinking about, acknowledging, demonstrating, mirroring body language and so on, even on electronic calls, is such an important element, isn't it, to be able to demonstrate that empathetic understanding of what you're listening to. So thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that, Luca. Rafał, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Sian.
Yes, I will add the third skill, which will fit the active listening and empathy. It's curiosity. We should be curious about people. We should ask why they think so. They have their own thoughts, why they feel in this way. So curiosity and not giving assumptions. It's very important to work with stakeholders. We also have to develop more specific skills to conduct interviews, to conduct questionnaires, observations, focus interviews, etc., etc. But I think that this in the top, maybe not the top, but in the top skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that. Let's next go to I think it's Sian next, actually, and then we'll hear from Mridul.
Thank you. So I think I'll be struggling to pick a top one because these answers are ideal. So I think maybe I'll go with the underrated soft skill, which I'd probably suggest is humour, just because building rapport with individuals is I think a great way to get engaged with them. And if you can put a smile on someone's face, if you can make it a relaxed environment, that can help sort of create that open narrative. And also it's nice just to then be able to sort of look forward to meetings. So when you are following up and when you're re-engaging with people, they're actually looking forward to just having a nice time as well. And it's an enjoyable process. So yeah, I think humour would be a good one.
Absolutely right. If you can engage, on a human level and, allow a little bit of, levity, in the process, then that's going to work to your advantage. So thank you, Sian. That's really good. Mridul, your thoughts, then we'll hear from Farah.
Yeah, my first pick is empathy. Of course, that has been already recommended by my fellow panelists. And the second most important is decoding the non-verbal communication. Because ability to understand what the people don't reveal, that's far more important to understand our stakeholders, because they may not be in a position, they may not be very vocal in expressing their concerns. So we need to understand through the non-verbal clues.
All right, those non-verbal clues, that's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? To try and kind of think that out. Now, Farah, I think you've got the hardest slot on this, okay, because everybody else has had their turn sort of before you.
So much.
When we kind of think about this sort of thing, in terms of our own consulting skills and being able to engage with others, what is the thought that you would share for people to focus on?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a soft skill, but something that pops up into my mind is trust your stakeholders. To a certain extent, I mean, you can be empathetic, you can have a lot of listening skills, etc., or whatever you want, but at some point, if you do not trust what they are sharing with you, all the information that they're all the situations that they are experiencing, the information that they are sharing, well, it will be of no use. So it's not basically a soft skill, but I get that it's, let's say, the basis for a stakeholder engagement relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're so right. If you don't establish trust throughout the project lifecycle, and particularly early on, then you can have all of the empathy that you like, but you'll come across as being not authentic. You're not going to carry people with you. So therefore, you need to be honest and open. And sometimes there are aspects of the impact of projects which do not need selling. They just need explaining. To know the difference and recognize the difference between those two situations is really important. Well, we've had some fantastic answers. So Jane, I hope that has equipped you with some good thoughts, from listening skills through to echoing and being empathetic, all of the way through to kind of thinking about, building trust and so on. So we appreciate the question. And Suchitra, if we can, I think we'll move on to the next one, please. And if you're watching in the audience and you've got a question for the panel, we've got about 25 minutes to run. So now is the time for you to submit your question.
A question from Mark Rosner. What are the most effective tools to use? I typically do detailed stakeholder analysis that includes demographic contact, SWOT, and RACI information.
All right, so we've got a lot of acronyms in here that hopefully the panel will help us all unpick kind of as we go. Farah, why don't you start us off and then we'll go to Darrel.
Thank you, Nick. Well, there is something that I've tested that's not commonly used when we speak about stakeholder engagement and analysis, but that might be interesting. It's creating persona. A persona that represents the people that you're having in front of you, their constraints, their challenges, their way of communication, the communication channels that they prefer, whatever you do. It's like, let's say, describing an archetype of your client. The difference is that you're speaking about your stakeholders and the people that are of interest and have an impact.
Yeah, it's such a super useful tool, very simple, but a very effective tool, actually, particularly within the project, because you're often the individuals who have that direct contact with stakeholders may be limited on the project team. And what they're trying to do all of the time is bring this to life, for other colleagues. And so by using personas, it's a very, very valuable way to help others buy into that mindset and that way of thinking. So thank you very much indeed. Darrel, your thoughts, then we'll go to Sian.
Yeah, thanks. Really, really simply with them, what's in it for me? And so those stakeholders connecting what the project initiative engagement is to their KPIs, their departments, their personal bonus structure, and making sure you start reporting on how that engagement is going to impact what matters most to them. Start there, and then you're going to get their interest, you're going to get their buy-in, and hopefully their advice and their support moving through.
Thank you very much indeed. Understanding how people are managed and measured is a really insightful way to understanding resistance and also buy-in sometimes as well, because it might be that shallow, actually, depending on the organization that you're working with. Sian, final thoughts on this?
I think some interactive tools are nice when engaging with stakeholders sort of directly. So whether it's through a presentation or if it's through sort of digital communication. So sort of tools like Microsoft Forms and things to gather feedback, or sort of Slido. So actually how we can accumulate some of the questions for sessions like today is a really nice way to get people engaged and involved and feeling relevant. And actually I think Level Up is probably a great example, because you're seeing your words back reflected back to you and discussed and seeing how relevant they are, and actually that can be very much applied, I think, as a tool in stakeholder engagement as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, thank you, Sian. That's great. Mridul, final thoughts on this?
I think it's a difficult question, that which is the most effective tool. I would say that it doesn't matter whether the black is cat or white, as long as it catches the mouse. So we need to understand the effectiveness. We have to measure it, and there can be a set of toolboxes. So to decipher on one effective tool, well, I'm afraid that, because the stakeholders are so diverse, that one effective tool may not work on all.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, the questioner highlighted a couple of shorthand acronyms that I think it is worthwhile us kind of jumping into a little bit. SWOT people may be more familiar with, because it's more generally used outside of the world of project management and program management and so on, around strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats laid out in a Boston matrix kind of fashion. So do have a little look at that, because it is quite a useful way, as Mark points out, in order to be able to think about, how a project or a product that's being developed may impact an audience. On the RACI side of things, would anybody in the panel like to kind of talk us through that acronym and also how it might be applied? Darrel, why don't you have a go for us?
Sure. So that's your roles and responsibilities inside of inside of the project. And identifying who's accountable, who ultimately is going to have their throat choked if things don't go well, who's responsible to get the work done, who's informed, that's the I. Oh my goodness, what does C stand for? Who's communicated to, right? And so who is part of the overall component. So you set up all of the different roles and you have these columns, and for each process step and for each milestone along the way, you identify the role for each individual stakeholder and or their teams. And that allows you to ensure that you follow that across the entire life cycle of the project.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, absolutely. And being consulted, in the middle of that matrix is quite an important thing. And then you get on to the next question, which is to what degree? To what degree? What does consultation actually mean? Sometimes consultation is a tick box, and every citizen has been through that. Oh, there's a consultation going on. Can I actually make a difference? No, I'm afraid not. It ends on Friday. We're going to move on from that. So it's a kind of a tick box. You think, oh, and that's not good stakeholder engagement, right? When you feel that you're just being pushed through some kind of conveyor belt, if you like. But when you are truly engaged and you are truly consulted, then it can make a huge difference. Yeah. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Darrel. That was really great. Suchitra, I think we should move on. Time is marching on. Let's take our next question to the panel, please.
The next question is from Isaac Atinio. In applying the 80-20 rule, how would you identify the crucial 20% of stakeholders who could have an outsized impact on the project's success?
Well, that's a really interesting and insightful question, Isaac. Thank you very much indeed, because you're really looking for a needle in a stack of needles sometimes, because at first glance, each member of the stakeholder community may look as though they might have equal merit. Rafał, you've done some of this in real life. How would you go about it?
At the beginning, I wouldn't be attached to the 20% as a number, because sometimes the crucial stakeholders are only 5% of them, but they have a really huge impact on the change initiative. Sometimes these are 60% of stakeholders who has a really crucial impact on change initiative, and dealing the Pareto rule into account of identifying the crucial stakeholders might not be the best solution for each initiative we go through. And when we identify these crucial stakeholders, we should always think that it might change, or it may change through the life cycle of the change initiative. As I answered the first or second question, the stakeholders' priority may change through the initiative. And we should be focused on updating the stakeholders list, the stakeholders' priorities through the life cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, because things do change, and those communities who are helping to shape at the beginning may not be the ones actually who really are going to make the biggest difference in the middle, or indeed at the end. So it is something that can evolve over time, absolutely, for sure. Luca, your thoughts, please, then we'll go to Mridul.
Yeah, I was wondering about this phrasing of a project success, because it's kind of two-sided, isn't it? You can have stakeholders who are fairly far removed from a given product. They might be part of the management team, and so they have an outsized impact, of course, because they could withhold funding or whatever. And then there's the other side, which is the value side, the usage side, which stakeholders benefit the most, or can have the most impact on the actual product as it is being developed and created and then later put to use.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thank you so much indeed, Luca. Very insightful, as always. Appreciate it. Mridul, and then Farah.
Well, I think those stakeholders, if they don't allow their resources to be used, if they don't allow their influence to be used, the change initiative is doomed. Or those stakeholders who decide to oppose the change initiative with the last bone in their body, and in that situation, the change initiative is going to be doomed. So I think we have to look for those stakeholders who are the most critically important, and naturally these key stakeholders have to remain very integral in the change initiative. They may be on our side, or they may be on the opposite side.
Thank you very much indeed. And final thoughts, Farah?
Well, there is something that we didn't speak about since the beginning of this episode. It's the common pitfalls when dealing with stakeholder engagement. And in here, the idea that comes into my mind is do not stick to job titles. I mean, we tend to do it as project managers or as part of change management teams. We look at the organization chart, and then we say, okay, the top 5 managers are the one that we need to convince, the one that would have the major impact on our topics. Well, it's not a good idea, because in that case, you're going to focus on them, whereas the decision-making span and decision-making, let's say, center might not be there. So do not stick to job titles. Just look into the field. Who are the decision makers? Who are the people that will be really impacted and have their word? Who are voicing their words?
Absolutely right. And listening to those voices is such an important component. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Thank you, Farah. Great answer to that question. Now, Marlene is also in the chat, and you may know that Marlene is quite an active contributor to the Level Up community. She's also a regular panelist. So she's talking about a relationship strategy on a page, okay, which sounds a wonderful way to express the idea. And it's most effective when you need to do a deep dive into a relationship with a particular stakeholder or a group of stakeholders that may make up a cohort. So thank you very much indeed, Marlene, for your thoughts in the social chat. And there's some really other great ones as well. Ola Desmond is talking about really listening and using those non-verbal cues as well when they come up from time to time. Facial expressions do indeed speak volumes, don't they, when stakeholders feel unable to speak openly in a workshop, sometimes because of more senior people. And you see that culturally in different societies around the world, that a senior person enters the room and the entire room goes quiet. Or in an online meeting, nobody volunteers anything, because of the dominance or the presence of, somebody senior. So we need to be cautious about that and not imagine that silence is consent. It's not always, actually. Okay, very good. Thank you both very much indeed for your contributions. Suchitra, if we're quick, I think we can fit in another couple of questions.
So we have a question from Vempio. What is the best way to categorize program and project stakeholders?
Oh, some categories then, Sian. What are your thoughts here?
So I think basically, I'm not going to come up with category sort of names and titles now, because I think that just wouldn't be applicable to every scenario. But I think maybe a good way to plan it is to sort of map it to what it is that's going on in the project. So i.e., if you're looking at sort of marketing areas, then look at sort of what categories you can sort of pull out of that topic. Or if you're looking into, I don't know, a manufacturing process, then do you need to sort of categorize it and cater it and map it to stages in that process? And I think maybe that you just need to map it back to sort of what it is that the project is addressing, and maybe what you think the outcomes are going to be. And then you should find that there's relevance then in those groups of stakeholders that apply to stages throughout the project. And hopefully that format then sort of works quite well.
Thank you very much indeed, Rafał.
There are some tools which help to categorize the stakeholders. For example, CPIG matrix, which shows customers, providers, influencers, and governance of the initiative. However, for me as a design thinking user, always the most important part of stakeholders and group of stakeholders are users, and users of the solution, users of the product. These are, for me, the most important stakeholders, and don't forget about them, whatever tool do you use.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So many people have designed products which, ultimately just didn't fly as a result of ignoring the users. And final thoughts, Mridul?
I think at project level, it is simpler. The stakeholders are from the user side and the supplier side. But at a program level, the number of stakeholders increase very much because, of various interests. And I think Rafał has very nicely explained the CPIG recommended by change management. So I believe that that's a good tool to use and categorize the stakeholders. And especially at times, we may not be very conscious of the influencers. So we need to, because governance is clear, customers are clear, providers are clear, but influencers probably requires a little more deep understanding that who may ultimately influence the change initiative.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And you do need really good, so shout out really for everybody that's working in the PMO type roles, is to ensure that you have fabulous stakeholder engagement at a project level in order to be able to make those program level decisions. And make it more meaningful, if you like, at the program level of aggregation. So thank you very much. It is very insightful. Suchitra, if we sprint, no pun intended, then we should be able to fit one last question in.
Sure. So our last question is from Jane again. Thank you for your answers to my previous question. What would you recommend for training and certification on stakeholder engagement?
All right. So, Darrel, I suppose here we should expand this a little bit as well into coaching. So we've got training, certification, and also coaching in mind. I'm just going to throw that one in there as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Stakeholder engagement is really all about managing relationships. And so sure, you have your core project management certification for managing projects and programs, but I promise you that executives see that differentiated project or program manager when they have that discipline around relationship management. And being effective in that, go in and start down the path of your business relationship management professional, your certified business relationship manager, and understand what it takes to get your master in business relationship management. That is the full, complete framework around managing not just stakeholders, but relationships within and outside and surrounding any project.
Thank you so much indeed. Appreciate that. Mridul and then Rafał.
Well, for me, my first love is change management, because change management offers a combination of various approaches, tools to understand the people, to motivate them, to involve them. So I would say that the change management is an excellent certification which includes the stakeholder engagement. It has many more things as well. So I would definitely recommend change management by APMG, and which has not only increased my own maturity and understanding, but the maturity and understanding of many of my participants also.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's huge value. And of course, with the Change Management Institute as well, that body of knowledge that underpins the qualification means that you're drawing on the experience of practicing professionals all over the world. Yes. It's very, very important. Rafał, final thoughts on this one?
I would add a facilitation and design thinking certifications, for example, DT method, as certifications which also teach you how to engage stakeholders, because it's a very wide area of activities which you have to do to engage stakeholders. So each of our propositions were on different level of engaging stakeholders, very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's some very exciting application of sense and approach within DT method, right? It is very exciting. It takes you on a journey and it will elevate. I can assure you, no matter how experienced you are in being able to do this, sitting in one of those DT method courses is going to remind you of what you're doing well, but it's also going to inspire you to go from good to great, if I can paraphrase somebody who's a much better author than I am and originator than I am. So do consider that super useful piece of learning for everybody, actually. And don't imagine that your project role particularly means that you shouldn't be learning this. The professionals of the future, the people who are in the biggest demand, the people who are earning the most money and delivering the most value to their organizations are multidisciplinary professionals. No longer can you afford to have a career which is you're a specialist in one thing. You actually need to broaden your skill set. So thank you very much indeed. So excellent work today, panel. Let's move to closing remarks then if we can. So we'll walk around the team. Darrel, if I may, I'll come to you first and then we'll hear from Farah.
Yeah, fantastic. I really appreciate the time today with the rest of the panelists. And, I'm going to touch on your most important component of being successful in a program or a project is managing your stakeholders, especially those with influence. And you'll get so myopic in trying to get scope, schedule, budget, quality done that you'll lose sight of you bringing the experience in. So get a coach, get someone you can have confident in to talk about, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And walk through the entire stakeholder executive table suite to catch that thing that you might miss that could derail what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely right. And if you're thinking, that you'd like to connect with one or more of the panel, then please do so. Everybody's LinkedIn profiles, where actually there's a link on the APMG International website. Just go to the events page for today and you'll be able to connect with any of us. And we do welcome professional connections. So do reach out to us and start that journey. Link up with somebody on the panel that you are relating to and see how they can help you in your career. All right, very good. Farah, your thoughts, please, and then Rafał.
Well, it was a great Level Up episode today. So much inspiring answers and so much challenging questions, as usual. What I would point out is that when it comes to stakeholders' engagement, nothing is guaranteed. It's an ongoing activity, and if you want more advice from my experience, for you project managers or future project managers or program manager, is watch out. There are invisible stakeholders as well, regulators or whatever, but they're equally important sometimes.
I absolutely agree. They kind of emerge really out of the fog, don't they, over time? So thank you very much. Rafał and then Luca.
It was really great meeting with all of you, and it's a really great exchange of ideas and thoughts. Stakeholders engagement is a multi-level field of expertise, and we shouldn't forget about change management, communication skills, about facilitation, about design thinking. And thank you so much for the opportunity of hearing you and sharing my thoughts. And I invite all of you to connect on LinkedIn. You're more than welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed, Rafał. We appreciate that. Luca and then Sian.
Yeah, so this was, as many have said before, a really insightful episode. And I'm really reminded of what Darrel said in his closing remarks. This is really one of those skills where you can't just take a course and then you know it all. You really need support from the outside. You need somebody on your team. You need somebody you can bounce ideas off of, a coach, a mentor, somebody like that. Because at the end of the day, this is all about human connections, human interactions. And those are, just really rewarding, but really difficult and nuanced, aren't they? So this is what I take away from this episode, I think.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your contribution. Sian and then Mridul.
Thank you. It's been amazing to learn from everyone today. So thank you very much. I think one item I'd take away is just that you might be surprised at who is a stakeholder. I think if you can, cast your net wide, get as much feedback, do some consultation if you can, because you'll be amazed at the amount of ideas and progress you can make from that consultation period.
Indeed, absolutely right. Mridul and then Suchitra.
Thank you, everyone, and our audience also for educating us on various aspects of stakeholder engagement. I would say that we as a project manager, change manager, program manager, we need to give mental space to our stakeholders. When I say mental space, that means we need to understand their concerns, their anxieties, their fears, and they may be real, they may be imaginary. So we need to give them mental space, and then we need to give them a physical space in our initiative. That means what kind of role they can play in the project or program. So we have to provide both mental space as well as physical space. That's very important. Only then we can get connected with them.
Thanks so much, indeed, Mridul. And Suchitra, quite an interesting session today from everybody. Some great questions, I thought, as well.
I agree, Nick. We've had some great questions, great comments from our viewers, and a very engaging audience. And of course, thank you to our panelists for your contribution. I enjoyed the show.
Absolutely. And thank you for the work that you've been doing. And on behalf of the panel, thank you to our producers online, from Ienzo through Mark, through Orla and everybody. Very well done for all of the comments and all of the questions that you've been putting in. We really do appreciate that. And on their behalf, thank you to the panel as well for giving us your time so generously today. We really do appreciate it. Now, if you did submit a question to the panel, of course, then do watch out for your name in the credits at the end of the show. Over on the APMG website, you can, of course, search for the answers to more than 2,300 previously asked questions. It's totally free of charge. And it connects you with more than 300 experts from all over the world in different disciplines. And you may also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. Just search for APMG International, Level Up Your Career, and you'll find us pretty easily. Coming up on Friday, this Friday the 12th at 2 p.m. UK time, we're going to be looking at how to achieve an agile mindset. So do have a little look at that. And that's actually on Monday the 15th. I do apologize. Friday the 12th, it's all about building your project management career in 2024. So a really important episode there. So consider that and join us later on this week for that. Don't forget that you can head over to the YouTube channel and give this video a little like, please. That would be super helpful. It does help others to discover our content, and just write to us and ask. We will send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.